What is time? A question so innocent, so deceptively simple, it almost feels like a riddle. Like asking a fish, what is water? We live inside time, breathe it, swim in it, let it carry us, second by second, year by year, until it carries us away entirely. And yet, despite its presence, despite its dominance over our every waking moment, we don't understand it. Not really. And that's the horror of it, isn't it? Think about it. We've built entire civilizations on clocks and calendars, carved our lives into hours and days, months and years. We measure, we count, we schedule. We tell ourselves stories about the past, where we've been, and the future, where we're going, as if they're maps we can fold into our back pocket. But what if time isn't a map at all? What if time isn't a line, stretching endlessly forward, or a river flowing predictably from one moment to the next? What if time, this thing we've structured our lives around, this thing that holds us together, isn't real? What if it's a mirage, a lie, a cruel trick designed to keep us sane while the universe laughs behind our backs? Pause for a moment. Look around. The clock on your wall, the calendar on your desk, even the sense of now that you're feeling. What if none of it is what you think it is? What if time isn't something you move through, but something that's been stitched around you, trapping you in a reality far stranger than you dare to imagine? So, let's do something reckless. Let's strip away the facade. Let's walk hand in hand into the void, into the heart of the question. What is time? What lies beneath it? And what happens when we pull the thread and let the whole illusion unravel? Come closer. We're about to dive into a place where past, present, and future dissolve, where the comforting lies we tell ourselves about progress, destiny, and free will crumble into dust. A place where the infinite waits, raw and indifferent. Do you feel it? That creeping unease? That's time letting go of you. Now let's begin. Einstein sits at the head of this table of ideas. His theory of relativity, the key that unlocks the door to the first horror, the block universe. Imagine this. Every moment of your life is fixed, immutable, etched into the cosmic architecture of space-time. You think you're free, that you're making choices, shaping your future. But you're not. The future isn't a blank slate waiting for your pen. It's already written. You're a passenger on a train whose tracks were laid long before you were born. That dream you had of starting over, reinventing yourself, that wasn't freedom. That was just the spotlight of your consciousness catching up with the part of the script you haven't read yet. Here's where it gets darker. The block universe doesn't move forward, it doesn't flow. Every moment you've ever lived, every heartbreak, every triumph, every breath, exists, frozen, like a fly trapped in amber. You think the pain of that breakup faded with time? No, it's still there. You're still there, trapped in that moment, feeling the sharp edges of it, even as the you in the present convinces yourself it's in the past. And the future? That's already waiting too. Every joy you'll feel, every tragedy you'll endure, it's all there, set in stone. You're living it right now, somewhere in the block, but you don't know it yet. You might think, what about the good moments? At least they're eternal too. And they are, but that's little comfort when you realize they're unreachable. You'll never again feel the sunlight of that perfect day on your skin, no matter how vividly you remember it. That version of you is just as frozen as the others, stuck in its own slice of the block. In the block universe, time doesn't erase, it doesn't heal, it doesn't forgive. It simply exists, unfeeling and immutable, while you stumble through it, slice by slice, convinced you're making progress. But are you? Einstein's universe is elegant, but it's also merciless. Every moment is eternal, every choice, every regret, every fleeting second of happiness, and you're spread thin across them all. You're not free. You're a shadow cast by a light that's already gone out. The block universe doesn't care about your plans or your dreams or the things you wish you could undo. It doesn't care about you at all. It just is. But what about the glimpses? The dreams that feel too real? The déjà vu that strikes like a lightning bolt, leaving you breathless, certain you've stood in this exact moment before. J.W. Dunne believed those weren't coincidences. Dunne's journals revealed a chilling truth. Your consciousness isn't confined to the present. When you sleep, when your mind slips free of the chains that bind it to now, it wanders. It drifts like a shadow across the great expanse of time, touching moments you haven't lived yet, or haven't consciously lived yet. Picture this. You dream of a loved one laughing, their face illuminated in some place you can't quite name. The next day, your phone rings. It's them, their laugh exactly as you saw it. Or you wake in a cold sweat, remembering a plane crash that felt so vivid you swore you were there. And then it happens. The news reports it the next evening, down to the smallest, most horrifying detail. These aren't coincidences. They're cracks in the illusion of time. Your dreams aren't just subconscious noise, they're memories of tomorrow. Dunne called this phenomenon serial time. The idea that consciousness isn't limited to the present, but drifts across layers of reality. You, in this moment, are just one version of yourself, while your dreaming mind roams those layers, glimpsing fragments of what's already there, waiting to unfold. But here's where the comfort ends. What happens when you start to remember the wrong things? When your dreams aren't of joy or triumph, but of dread. Imagine waking up from a nightmare, your heart pounding, your hands trembling. You tell yourself it was just a dream, a trick of your mind. But what if it wasn't? What if that nightmare wasn't born from your past, but your future? What if every catastrophe waiting for you, every loss, every betrayal, has already cast its shadow into your dreams? You don't remember it clearly, of course. That's the cruelty of it. The future speaks in riddles, blending symbols with emotions, leaving you just enough to feel uneasy, but not enough to change what's coming. Your unconscious mind knows, but it doesn't speak the language of reason. It gives you whispers, not warnings. And what if those glimpses start to bleed into your waking life? A flash of déjà vu at the worst possible moment. A car skidding out of control. A phone call you can't bear to answer. And then the realization, you've seen this before. You saw it in the shadowlands of sleep, and now you're living it. Here's the most terrifying question of all. If your dreams are memories of the future, how much control do you really have? Are you walking toward these events by chance, or because you've already seen them? Are you free to change your path, or are you simply fulfilling a script your sleeping mind has already read? Dunne's glimpses might seem like a gift, but gifts like this come at a cost, because once you open your eyes to the cracks in time, you can never unsee them. Eric Wargo takes it a step further. He doesn't just say the future influences your present. He says it owns you. You think your choices are your own? Wargo says no. The you of the future is already reaching back, pulling the strings, whispering into your unconscious mind. That moment of inspiration, that gut feeling that felt so right, so yours, that wasn't you. That was your future self, desperate to course correct, nudging you onto the path it's already walked. And the whispers don't come from a place of love or guidance, not always. Sometimes they're acts of desperation. Sometimes your future self is cruel. It knows the pain you'll endure, the losses you'll suffer. It sees every betrayal, every fall, and it sends that knowledge back to you. Not clearly, but in fragments. A sudden shiver of dread. A nightmare that jolts you awake but leaves you unsure why. A feeling of inexplicable unease, as though a shadow has passed through you. You might think, why would my future self do this to me? Why not just tell me what's coming so I can avoid it? But that's the catch. It can't. Wargo's theory suggests that your unconscious mind filters these messages from the future, distorting them into something symbolic, almost alien. It's like trying to send a warning across a chasm where language doesn't quite reach. The message arrives, but it's warped, cryptic riddles instead of clear instructions. Here's where the terror begins to seep in. Wargo doesn't just ask you to consider the possibility that your future self is trying to help you. He asks you to consider what happens when it fails. What if the loop breaks? What if the version of you waiting in the future is too far gone, too broken, too defeated to send anything back? Worse, what if it's not trying to save you at all? What if it's the one sabotaging you? Think about it. Every misstep you've made, every path that's led to heartbreak or ruin, what if those weren't mistakes? What if they were carefully placed breadcrumbs, not leading you out of the labyrinth, but deeper into it? What if your future self, trapped in a timeline it can't escape, has turned bitter, vengeful? Imagine a version of yourself so consumed by regret, so weighed down by its failures, that it starts to hate you. The naive version of itself that still has hope, that still believes in second chances. And from that place of despair, it reaches back. Not to save you, but to drag you into the same darkness it's trapped in. And here's the question Wargo leaves hanging like a dagger over your head. How would you know? How would you ever be able to tell whether the instinct that saved you from disaster was your future self's kindness or its cruelty? Whether the gut feeling that pushed you toward that choice was leading you to triumph or war? What if every moment of despair you've ever felt, every scream in your chest that you couldn't quite voice, was a scream from the version of you in the future? A version that sees no way out. The loop is a mirror, but it's a cracked one. You don't know which version of yourself is staring back. And the worst part, you might never know. And then there's Terence McKenna, the jester prophet, the cosmic trickster who dared to look at time and laugh, not out of arrogance, but out of a deep, unsettling knowing. To McKenna, time isn't a line or a loop or even a block. It's something stranger, something alive. A spiral, a fractal, endlessly accelerating as it collapses toward a singularity, a point where everything happens all at once. He called it time wave zero, a theory born not from equations but from visions, from psychedelic journeys that peeled back the layers of reality itself. Think about how history feels. It's speeding up, isn't it? For thousands of years, humanity crawled through the mud, inching forward. For centuries, nothing much changed. Plough was a plough, a wheel was a wheel, and then, bam, a sudden explosion. In just a few decades, we went from horse-drawn carts to walking on the moon. From handwritten letters to instant global communication. From asking questions to machines that can answer them better than we can. McKenna believed this acceleration wasn't random. It wasn't progress. It was inevitable. Time, he said, is like a spring winding tighter and tighter, each turn compressing history, speeding up the pace of novelty and invention. The gaps between revolutions, industrial, technological, cultural, are shrinking, and then the spring snaps. Here's where McKenna takes us into the deep end. The singularity isn't just the end of time as we know it. It's the end of everything we understand about reality. At that point, time collapses into a single infinite moment. The distinctions we cling to, past, present, future, vanish. All possibilities, all events, all versions of you, of me, of everything that has ever existed, merge into one eternal, unchanging now. Sounds beautiful, doesn't it? But think about it. What does that actually mean? No more time, no more linearity, no more cause and effect, just an endless scream of existence layered upon itself, overlapping, collapsing, infinite. Imagine being caught in that moment, unable to escape, unable to move forward because there is no forward, no backward, no motion at all. Are you ready for that? Because McKenna wasn't talking about some distant future. He wasn't saying this singularity is thousands of years away. He was saying it's soon, sooner than we're prepared for. And the signs are everywhere. The quickening pace of innovation, the rise of artificial intelligence, the collapse of institutions that seemed eternal just decades ago. Everything is fracturing, breaking down, speeding up, as if the universe itself is racing toward its endgame. But here's the twist. McKenna didn't see this as an end. He saw it as a beginning, a doorway into something we can't comprehend, a realm where time doesn't exist, where thought becomes reality, where the barriers between self and other dissolve completely. Can you even imagine it? A universe without boundaries, without distinctions, where everything that could ever happen is happening all at once. But then again, maybe you don't have to imagine it. Maybe deep down, you already feel it. That sense of acceleration, of inevitability, as if the ground beneath your feet is tilting, pulling you towards something vast and unknowable. So the question isn't whether the singularity is coming. The question is, when it does, who will you be when there's no you left to be? McKenna's spiral keeps tightening, and the center cannot hold. Are you ready to let go? Carlo Rovelli, ever the calm voice of reason, delivers the most unnerving idea of all. Time isn't real. Not in the way we think it is. It's not fundamental. It's not a river or a ticking clock. It's not flowing forward, dragging us along with it. Time, Rovelli says, is nothing more than a trick of perspective, a convenient illusion we've built to keep ourselves from staring directly into the void. In Rovelli's universe, there's no past, no future, not even a now. The particles that make up your body don't know what time is. They interact, they change, they decay, but none of it happens in sequence. To them, there's no yesterday, no tomorrow. only the raw chaos of quantum relationships, events flickering in and out of existence without order or meaning. What we call time is just a story we tell ourselves, a story that helps us weave cause and effect into something coherent, something that makes sense. Without that story, there's no before or after, no beginning or end, just events, scattered like stars across an endless sky. But here's the nightmare Rovelli leaves us with. What happens if we stop telling the story? Imagine. You're standing on a shoreline, watching the waves roll in. The rhythm feels eternal, predictable. Each wave follows the one before it, and you're comforted by the silence. But what if, all at once, the rhythm stopped? What if the waves froze, collapsed, turned into a chaotic mess of water and foam with no motion, no time to give it shape? That's Rovelli's universe without time. A universe where there's no meaning, no sequence, no order. Where the framework we've used to navigate existence unravels, leaving behind only raw, disjointed fragments of reality. And if time unravels, what happens to you? Think about your memories. You think they're a sequence, right? A thread stretching back to your earliest moments, giving you a sense of continuity, a sense of self. But what if that thread is a lie? What if your memories aren't in order at all? Just random flashes of events that your brain stitched together into a story. Without time, there's no you to hold them together. Your thoughts, your identity, even your sense of existing in this moment. All of it depends on the illusion of time. Without it, what are you? A collection of fragments drifting without meaning or coherence. Here's the most unsettling part. Rovelli isn't talking about some far-off scenario. He's saying this is already true. Time doesn't exist as a fundamental property of the universe. It only exists in your head. The clock you check 100 times a day, that's not time. That's just a tool. A measuring stick we invented to cope with something too vast, too incomprehensible to face directly. But what if that tool breaks? What if the illusion shatters, and you're forced to confront the universe as it really is? A web of interactions with no past, no future, no now? Just events happening. This is Rovelli's universe, cold, elegant, and terrifying in its indifference. Time isn't real, the story isn't real, and maybe, just maybe, you aren't real either. Finally, Sri Aurobindo smiles gently, as if he sees something the rest of us cannot, a pattern beneath the chaos. To him, this chaos isn't chaos at all. It's divine. Time, he says, is the dance of consciousness, the infinite fracturing itself into the finite so it can know itself. The universe doesn't simply exist, it unfolds, and time is the rhythm of that unfolding. But here's the weight of his revelation. If Aurobindo is right, then every moment of suffering, every heartbreak, every second of despair is part of that dance. Your pain isn't random, isn't an error in the system. It's deliberate, a necessary note in the symphony of existence. The universe, he tells us, is a mirror gazing into itself. To see its own face, it must fragment into countless pieces, each one a reflection, each one a perspective. You are one of those fragments, a shard of infinity. And to fracture like this, to break into the finite, means there must be boundaries, separation, loss. Every tear you've cried, every ache you've carried, every scream you've swallowed in silence, these aren't accidents. They're the universe experiencing itself through you. Your pain, your joy, your confusion, your wonder, it all adds to the tapestry of understanding. The cosmos uses you to know what it means to be alive. Aurobindo's voice softens, but his words cut deeper. You were not created to be happy, he says. You were created to be experienced. Let that sink in. The meaning you've sought, the sense of purpose you've yearned for, it isn't about fulfillment or peace or even enlightenment, it's about the process. You are here so that existence can feel itself through your eyes, through your heart, through your breaking and mending, and breaking again. Can you accept that? Can you live with the idea that every triumph, every moment of bliss is as fleeting as it is intentional, and that every moment of agony is just as sacred? Here's where the paradox begins to unfold. If you are a fragment of infinity, then your suffering is both deeply personal and entirely impersonal. It matters because you feel it. It matters because it shapes you. And yet, in the grand scheme of things, it is one drop in an ocean of cosmic experience. Imagine a vast river flowing endlessly. Each ripple, each wave, is a moment in time, a single experience. Some waves are soft, gentle, golden under the sun. Others are dark and violent, crashing against unseen rocks. But the river doesn't judge them. It doesn't distinguish between the beautiful and the brutal. It needs every wave, every ripple to be whole, and so do you. Aurobindo leans back, serene, unshaken. He isn't asking you to surrender to despair. He's asking you to see the beauty in it, to understand that even your pain is part of something infinitely larger. The heartbreak that feels like it will crush you. It's a thread in a tapestry so vast, so intricate, that you'll never see its full design. But it matters, because without that thread, the tapestry wouldn't exist. So can you live with that? Can you find peace in the idea that your suffering isn't meaningless but necessary? That your joy, your sorrow, your struggle, they aren't mistakes. They're the universe living through you. To Aurobindo, time isn't your enemy. It isn't a prison or a trick or a curse. It's the framework that allows the infinite to step into the finite, the eternal to become the fleeting, and the unknowable to become you. And maybe that's the most divine thing of all. So here we are. At the end, or is it the beginning? Time isn't a river. It isn't something flowing gently past us, carrying us to new destinations. No, time is something far stranger, far darker. It's a prison, trapping you in a single moment while the rest of your life looms just out of reach. It's a spiral, tightening with every breath, pulling you toward a singularity you cannot escape. It's a lie, a cruel illusion that tricks you into believing in progress, in change, in freedom. It's a mirror, reflecting your hopes, your regrets, your fears back at you, over and over in infinite variations. And yes, it's a dance so vast, so intricate, that you will never hear the full rhythm, never see the whole pattern, because you are one step in an eternal choreography. Maybe it's all of these, maybe it's none. But here's the truth, the only truth that matters. Whatever time is, it's not yours. You don't own it. You don't control it. You are just a passenger, caught in its web, stumbling forward, or backward, or nowhere at all, through something you'll never fully understand. And that's the final horror. Not that time is an illusion, but that you are. But maybe there's another way to see it. Maybe it's not about breaking free of time or unraveling its mysteries. Maybe it's about living inside the question, embracing the paradox, the chaos, the beauty. Because whether time is a prison or a dance, it's the only stage we have. So what do you think? Is time your ally, your enemy, or something else entirely? Let me know in the comments. Share your thoughts, your fears, your questions. Let's unravel this together. And if you enjoyed stepping into the void with me, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and join me for the next journey into the mysteries that shape us, haunt us, and define us. Until then, remember, time may not be yours, but this moment is.